Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Into the Hive Mind. I'm, a week and a half, 2 weeks after the balanced data slate at the moment, and basically I just wanted to give myself plenty of time to cook with the new stuff, try and come up with some lists, play them out, see how it feels, make some adjustments, play some more, and that's what I've done. I have played 7 games with Tyranids since the data slate came out. Had some wins, had some losses, definitely learned a whole lot about the new stuff, and now here I am to bring it to you guys. So first off, let's look at what has changed for the Tyranids as of Chapter Approved 2025. So first off, we have points adjustments. Not a whole lot here, and actually a lot of armies didn't see a ton of points. I think Sisters and Blood Angels were like the biggest winners points-wise. No army got slapped too hard with points. Eldar slightly, but they got hit more with rules than points. So us, it was just a little bit of tweaking. Honestly, everything got buffed. There is one line of red in here, but that's a Psychophage who got some rules changes, so we will talk to that in a second. But first off, Hive Guard. Down 10 points for 3, 20 points for 6. They're still ridiculously overcosted. I will throw this out there. I did try them. I wanted to see how a unit of 6 felt at 180 points, and the answer is about what you would expect. They're kind of tanky. They still don't really do any damage. And the one game I played them in, my opponent was a little caught off guard at the Overwatch on 4+. I ended up doing more damage in Overwatch than I did showing up. But still, turns out AP1 is just... that still makes them pretty useless, even with Ignore Cover. Because unfortunately, I was going up against Space Marines, and they just Armor of Contempted, and they were fine. And that's kind of the main reason. So I shot into some... whatever the 3-wound Sword Brethren. I shot into some Sword Brethren and with the Haywire guns, and he Armor Contempted, and I killed 1. And then he came forward, and I overwatched him, and I killed 3 more. So that was kind of cool. And then they got tagged, and they never got to shoot again. So that's kind of what you would expect. So I think still a little bit overcosted, but they're getting there. 150 would actually be a real unit, I think. So just another 30 points to go, and they might actually see the table again. Then we have the Hive Tyrant, went down 30 points. He did get a rules change to his command ability, which is similar to the command abilities of everyone else. Basically, we just can't do the free CP thing every player turn anymore. It is now once per battle round. So that nerf is apparently worth 30 points. The Flying Hive Tyrant had the exact same thing. Winged Hive Tyrant, sorry, that's why he's at the end. W. Had the same thing, minus 30 points as well. That's actually not too bad. That it makes it where their defensive and offensive profiles now seem somewhat in line with their points changes. And the once per battle round, it's still a nice buff. You're just not sitting there at 10 free CP per game. You're only getting 5 now. So I think these guys are pointed pretty right on par with where they should be now with these changes. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we got the Psychophage. He did go up 15 points. He's no longer just less than 100-point monster that basically is a body for cheap, which is what he used to be. Now he actually has a purpose. We'll get to that as soon as we talk about the balance changes next as to what changed with the Psychophage. Screamer Killers, they went down 10 points. They're at 135. They're 20 points more than a Carnifex. They still, I don't know, they still just don't do anything. It's really frustrating. I did play a list with 3 of them. I'll talk about that at the end of this video. A Haruspex still beats them out on points, and a Haruspex is tougher and on average does the same or a little more on damage. So Screamer Killers are still just not quite doing it for me. I think Carnifexes need to be 90 points, and Screamer Killers maybe 105. That's odd. Maybe that's too undercosted, but I kind of thought 135 would be great for Screamer Killers, and I still they still just don't do anything. It's really unfortunate. So yeah, I think they just need to be super cheap bodies. Being T9 hurts a lot. You're a lot more susceptible to melt-a-guns. And not having an invuln save obviously is terrible. And so only having 10 wounds, one lucky melt-a-gun shot can kill you with the melt-a-4. If they just roll a 6, they kill you in a single shot, and you don't really get a save. Like, you get a 6-up. Yeah, it's really good. So, unfortunately, yeah, I still think these Scrimo killers are just a tad too overcosted. And finally, we have the Swarmlord, who went down 20 points. This is nice. Swarmlord, I think, was a little overcosted. Like, it's really cool having a CP ability and a Vect. But offensively, his Flamer's cute. His 8 attacks are nice. Like, Strength 10 Twin Link. The +1 Strength helps Hive Tyrants a lot. Going from Strength 9 to Strength 10 is huge, especially because they will always have Synapse, but it's still, if you just roll a few too many ones to hit, like, Swarmlord sometimes doesn't even kill a 5-man Marine squad. AP2 hurts a lot in melee, because, just basic Marines save on 5+, and, that already invalidates. Even if you get all 8 hits and all 8 wounds, you're going to do maybe 5 get through the armor save. So if you drop even one attack, then you're not killing a 5-man Marine unit, and that's kind of unacceptable for, the lore Swarmlord, who's supposed to be ridiculous. But anyways, 220 is nice. He is playable because of his Vect aura. Is very strong, and the extra CP is really nice. So I think this is great. Just a nice little boost. I've been playing Swarmlord anyways, so you get some points. Is he worth his points? I don't know. He just brings something to the table that you can't get without him, so points kind of become irrelevant because of that. And it's just, do you want this tech piece? And, obviously I wouldn't be taking it at 300, but I think honestly anywhere between 180 and the 240 he was at, it kind of just becomes, you're paying a lot of points for this tech piece. So, yeah, 220 seems great. All right, so let's get into the balanced data slate updates. Not a ton here. Like I said, the Hive Tyrant and Winged Hive Tyrant, their free command point thing is now once per battle round instead of once per player turn. So they cut that ability in half and deemed that worth 30 points. So that seems about right. I don't know. Like I said, it seems like now you're just paying points for the privilege of having a Hive Tyrant with their stat line defensively and offensively, and both of them being, but the flying Hive Tyrant being 170 actually seems about right for that. The walking Hive Tyrant is definitely a lot more, but he also has an extra toughness and an aura of assault and lethal. So I do think that puts him right about that 200 point range. So I think they did great with that. And then the Psychophage. So the Psychophage has changed completely. Had a complete remake, and he gave us something that Tyranids desperately needed. So first off, his movement changed from 8 to 12. He is now the fastest Tyranid monster that we have aside from aircraft, which is kind of hilarious. He's the same speed as the flying Hive Tyrant. That just kind of shows how slow our monsters are compared to like tanks, because I think they literally just looked at this and they're like, oh we need to up his movement. What seems good for a 120 point vehicle? And they're like, well, if we're gonna make him slightly fast, let's go 12. Like, that's the same speed as a Rhino. He's basically a Rhino. And I don't think they realize that makes him so much faster than even our supposedly fast snake boys. But yeah, it's just the speed of a Rhino. But compared to the rest of the Tyranids, he's suddenly very fast, and that's a good thing because his ability has completely changed. He now, instead of giving a 6-inch aura of 6-up Feel No Pain, he gives you +1 AP in melee as long as you hit a unit with his Flamer in the shooting phase. So, once again, kind of Tyranids going through hoops. It's not hit you with a Flamer, get +1 AP for the rest of the turn. It's hit him with a Flamer, get +1 AP in melee. which is fine. Tyranids desperately needed the +1 AP in melee. Kind of throwing in the ignore cover from Pyrovores would be cute, but they didn't get that. But like, this is still a really cool thing. Like I said, Hive Tyrants being AP2 in melee sucks. So you're kind of paying a tax for this, but being able to have your Psychophage flame something, and suddenly your Hive Tyrants and your all of your monsters are now AP3 in melee, and that is something that Tyranids need desperately. Losing the 6-up Feel No Pain hurts a lot, because that was just a really nice little defensive buff. Specifically for my Assimilation Swarm list, I was built purely around chunky infantry, and just having that 6-up Feel No Pain to try and hit some weird breakpoints and basically improve the durability anywhere from 50% to, like a little 10% boost, depending on the breakpoints, was huge. So losing that, I think, is going to hurt my Assimilation Swarm list that I've been playing for ages. But on the other hand, I get to just keep the Psychophage in there, get an extra AP in combat. The Hive Tyrants are even more mean, and the Tyrant Guard being AP2 means they'll actually do some damage in combat, which is kind of cool. So I think that's a trade-off. Basically, my list became a little less defensive and a little more offensive. So I'm okay with that change, and I paid 15 whole points for that, except the Hive Tyrant and Swarmlord went down 50. So I actually net gained 30 points, 35 points in my Assimilation Swarm, which is a nice little boost. So I'll take it. Overall, I think Tyranids need this desperately. The other thing is the Psychophage is no longer kind of a meme in combat. He went from D6 plus 1 attacks to flat 6. So he will actually be able to kill some stuff in combat now, especially because he also went from AP1 to AP2 in combat, and if he charges the thing he hit with his Flamer, he's suddenly AP3 in combat. With 6 attacks, probably hitting on 2s, because his Flamer probably kills a guy or does a wound. So then he's hitting on 2s, Strength 6, AP3 for 2 dev wounds, 6 attacks. Like, that's actually no joke. He actually can do damage in combat now. I mean, not crazy damage, but he's going to kill 2 or 3 Marines pretty easily. Whereas before, he basically, if you weren't a Psyker, he'd be lucky to do 2 damage. Now, I think he's going to reliably do 6 damage, which is nice. That's great. For a guy that's basically 110 points, seems good. I actually really like this Psychophage rework, and I think one Psychophage is kind of going to have to be in every list unless you're just playing a gun line. All right, and then the next change we have are the Ravener datasheet was changed. So nothing really changed about their profile. The only thing is their melee weapons changed. Instead of having 7 attacks at 511 twin linked, we now have 3 attacks at 522. The internet was raging about this because, it's the internet. People are gonna complain, especially Tyranid players. I have noticed have a really big aptitude for complaining and whining. This is a buff, guys. I promise you, this is a buff. Gaining an extra AP and actually having multi-damage combat with numerous attacks. The other thing that changed is you no longer are in squads of 3 to 6. You now have a squad size of just 5. So this is 15 attacks for 125 points. So the points stayed the same at 25 per model. You're just paying 125 for 5 instead of 75 for 3 or 150 for 6. So you're staying the same at points. You now have 522, and you keep your twin linked. If they had lost their twin linked, yes, this would be a definitive nerf. This is actually, I'd say overall, it's kind of a side grade. But in terms of looking at the rest of what Tyranids have, this is absolutely a buff. Because basically, Raveners were the same thing as Tyranid Warriors, just without Synapse and a little bit faster. And they weren't, I don't know. they were just Tyranid Warriors without Synapse and 1 less AP, 1 more attack, a little bit faster. I think this actually gives Raveners a niche where they are unlike anything else in our book, and that's fantastic. They're incredible because basically the only other reason you would take them is because of their uppy downy ability to do secondaries. This does make it a little more awkward to do the uppy downy thing because you're paying 50 more points for that utility unit, and you have a larger footprint. But again, you now have an actual melee combat unit that Tyranids just don't really have. This is our Sword Brethren unit now. Especially when we get to the next data sheet. This is our combat unit that will actually kill stuff in combat. Tyranid warriors were able to do this before. No one was taking them. I don't know why. But in Invasion Fleet, Tyranid warriors with a prime, getting the lethal hits on vehicles, spending the 2 CP to crit on 5s, lethal sustained, rerolling 1s. Guys, that kills everything in the game. I don't know if you've noticed how Death Guard do that now with like all their units. It turns out crit 5s, lethal sustained is really, really good. And Tyranid warriors were able to do that. You can still do this with the new Raveners, except it's higher damage. So incredible. Because again, you bring in this new Ravener datasheet, you're going to get sustained. You get lethal against vehicles. You 2 CP, crit on 5s with 2 different units. They will kill anything in the game. I'm not kidding. Average damage, they do like 28 wounds through Feel No Pain and everything to a large knight. Like, they will pick up a Castellan, not that anyone's bringing those, but they can kill that in one hit, which is incredible. Tyranids just don't have anything like this, so getting this is incredible. Speaking of which, let's get to the hyper-adapted Raveners. So these are the hyper-adapted Raveners. This is the new Tyranid kill team that's coming out. I think this coming weekend. It was teased yesterday. It comes out this weekend. I'm recording on Father's Day, for those of you who are not aware. Kids are taking a nap, so I decided to take this opportunity to finally do a video. And but yeah, these hyper adapted Raveners, they come out officially next week, I believe. But we got this data slate along with the chapter approved 2025, and man, these guys are cool. So nothing really too different in terms of stat lines from the regular Raveners, but they include a Ravener Prime, who is literally just a Tyranid Prime in Ravener form. It's 2 Raveners stuck together, so you have 6 wounds and 6 attacks instead of 3 wounds and 3 attacks. So they did the exact same thing. They even kept the sustained hits 1 that the Tyranid Prime gives. However, you can tell that this is a newer data sheet further along in the edition, because holy crap, is this better than any other Tyranid data sheet in terms of all the extra abilities that they get. So this is GW trying to move models. This is also power creep through, 10th edition has been out for like 2 years now, and it shows. So these guys, first off, it is a character unit. So they join the regular Raveners, making them a giant 10-man brick. You can do that, and that becomes our Sword Brethren actual melee unit that kills most things in the game. I don't know why people don't think that this can kill stuff, but it turns out if you have 33 attacks hitting on 3s, sustained, you're going to get something like 26 hits, and then your strength 6, because the character is Synapse, strength 6 twin linked, so you're wounding everything that is not T12 on 5s. Oh wait, they also have anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5 up, so they will wound everything in the game on 5s. It gets a little weird because if you don't have... if you are fighting a T12 monster, your attached Raveners are going to be wounding that on 6s, but the other half of the squad are going to be wounding on 5s. Rerolling, they do some serious damage. AP 2 for 2 is really nice. The only time that these guys kind of struggle is if they go up against -1 damage. So that's the biggest issue. If your opponent has -1 damage, they do get nerfed substantially, and then you really feel the loss of attacks that they had. But if your opponent doesn't have that, these guys blend through everything. They're fast. They move 10 inches. Importantly, the sustained hits 1 is actually not dependent on the character. It just is part of their datasheet ability, is this unit has sustained hits 1. So if your opponent precisions out the character, the only thing you're losing is Synapse, which, does reduce your strength by 1. So maybe that comes up. But Yeah, that's actually the only thing you lose if you lose the character, obviously, and then the extra attacks. But you cannot precision out and remove your sustained hits. Importantly, when they join a Ravener unit, they do confer the sustained hits. And then the other datasheet ability that they have is once per game, you can free Rapid Ingress or free Heroic. This is awesome because, especially if you're playing, we'll get to the new Tunnel Detachment, but you can potentially Rapid Ingress 6 away, free Heroic, and then Blender. it's really good. And while you join the other unit, you also get the Ravener's datasheet ability to be able to go up, down. These guys, it's awesome. You have a teleporting Sword Brethren squad that kills anything in the game. The only thing is they are super squishy. This is where I wish that I could have a 6-up Feel No Pain aura, because having 3 wound models without any kind of Feel No Pain, the meta is primed for all these elite infantry 3 wound models. So you just walking in with 3 wound models that only have a 4-up save and no invuln, they do die very quickly. So it is kind of a glass cannon unit, but it is a speedy glass cannon unit that can get where you need it to go. And that is something that Tyranids have not had and is a very cool tool to put in our pocket. These guys go in any detachment you want and are incredible. All right, now let's get into the real good stuff. You could tell I was excited about the Raveners. Let's get into the Subterranean Assault Detachment. So the other things that changed is all of our Snake Boys got the Burrower keyword. The Ravener datasheet changed to include the Burrower keyword. The hyper-adapted Raveners have the Burrower keyword. And then the Trigon and Moloch were also changed to include the Burrower keyword, which is basically it's the same as the Vanguard keyword for Vanguard Onslaught. This is Subterranean Assault, and it keys off of the Burrower keyword. Except the first rule, Surprise Assault, is really good and doesn't go off of that keyword. And instead, it works for all Tyranid models, reroll hit rolls of 1. So this is our new detachment, and they just felt like Tyranids needed a bit of a boost. This was the addition of less rerolls, and Tyranids actually got that memo, and then a lot of armies didn't. And so this is our little consolation. Hey, sorry guys, we kind of gave everyone rerolls, but we forgot about you and the other Xenos. Not including Eldar, of course. But the Xenos do not get rerolls. That was supposed to be a Space Marine thing that then also became a Chaos Space Marine thing because they're Space Marines. So, rerolls were abound, and now Tyranids finally have a way to rerolls outside of the one exocrine shooting phase. Your entire army rerolls once to hit. This is in shooting, this is in combat. That is absolutely incredible. That is just a flat stat increase. If you want to look at it, you can look at it as a 17% increase. I think it's actually better than that. It depends on what your weapon or ballistic skill was. But basically, the better you are at it, the better the reroll ones is, because the more likely that those ones are going to actually convert into hits. Most of the time, we're hitting on 3s. It's plenty good. But especially for things like our Hive Tyrants, our Norns, everything that hits on 2s, this just makes them infinitely more reliable. Suddenly, our low volume of attacks doesn't matter nearly as much because we're converting 100% of them into hits. And that's just such a great bonus. And the fact that it's in both phases and in Overwatch, it's great. Just super strong buff. Tyranids desperately needed rerolls, and we got some. Now let's get into what the detachment actually does. And bear with me here because it is kind of a lot. But basically, anytime a Burrower unit comes in from reserves, you get to place a Burrow token. A Burrow token is a 40 millimeter token, so it's the same size as an objective marker, within 1 inch of the Burrower model and outside of 3 inches of enemy models. When you have these Burrower tokens, if an enemy model gets within 3 inches of it, it is removed from the table. Similar to kind of the Genestealer Cult ambush tokens, at least the way they used to work. I don't even see Genestealer players playing with them anymore. But similar to that, except you have to get within 3 to make them go away. And then importantly, here's what the burrower tokens do. Whenever a unit arrives from reserve, you can arrive wholly within 9 of this token, and as long as you do that, you can be outside of 6 inches of enemy models instead of outside of 9. This is still screened out by the 12-inch no deep strike stuff, so you cannot show up within 12 of infiltrators or anyone else who has that kind of rule. But other than that, you can show up outside of 6. This includes rapid ingress, importantly. So as long as you are wholly within 9 of a burrow token, you can show up outside of 6, even on your opponent's turn. That can be very powerful. And then the other important thing about this is you can chain off of them. It is as soon as a burrower token appears, you make a burrower token. And then after that guy has now shown up, you now have a burrower token that your next unit coming in from reserves can use that burrow token and show up with it wholly within 9 of that outside of 6 of enemies. So you can show up with a Trigon, create a burrow token, and then you could have a Maliceptor from outflank walk through that burrow token, and instead of coming within 6 of a table edge, you just show up next to that burrow token, because it does work for strategic reserves as well. It does not have to be a deep strike model. And yeah, you can just walk through this tunnel and show up outside of 6. It is very powerful. Being able to show up 6 away. Turns out if you combine the 2 aspects of this detachment, it makes every single data sheet in our book good, because if you just look at a data sheet and you say, hey, how good are you if you can just start 6 inches away from your opponent and you reroll 1s to hit? And the answer is everything is good. If you just start 6 inches away, you're basically assured a charge, at least with a CP reroll. You should be making that. And then you also reroll 1s to hit to get some extra, consistency. It makes everything good. Suddenly, every single data sheet that has been sitting on the shelf could be viable. Obviously, some are more viable than others, but everything can actually do something with this detachment. It turns out just showing up 6 away is a big deal. So there is counterplay to this. Your opponent can screen. Obviously, they can put screens up and make it where you're only 6 inch showing up away from the screens. You kill the screen, and then they kill you. So that's the counterplay there. And again, the 12-inch no deep strike does work against this. But yeah, it's a very powerful ability. Now let's get into the enhancements and stratagems, and then we can talk about the true power of this list. All right, so enhancements. Synaptic strategy. This basically gives any deep strike character the ability to rapid ingress for 0 CP, even if someone else has already done so this phase. This is the same ability that the new Raveners have. So I'm just going to throw this out there. If you are taking 2 units of adapted Raveners and this enhancement on either a Trigon or a Flyrant, those are the only 2 guys that can take this. Because that's the other thing, is in this detachment, up to 2 Trigons can become characters and then take enhancements. So that's fantastic. So yeah, either a Trigon or a Flyrant can take this enhancement, and you combine that with 2 of the adapted Raveners, you suddenly can have 4 rapid ingress in a single turn. And so what that means is, let's just say your opponent is coming to charge you. Here's a trick that I've done. I'm going to spoil one of my lists coming up. Your opponent gets ready to do a charge. You show up with you rapid ingress in a Moloch. Actually, no. You rapid ingress in a Flyrant. You spend 1 CP, you rapid ingress in a Flyrant. Then you rapid ingress in both of your Ravener squads, and you create little burrow tokens, and then you use that burrow token and you rapid ingress in your other Flyrant. And all of these guys can potentially heroic. And on top of that, it's kind of a melee meta out there right now. Putting in 2 Hive Tyrants suddenly from rapid ingress in the same turn, right as your opponent was about to hit you with their hammer unit, your 2 Flyrants show up and just use their ability for -1 attack on that hammer unit and probably are reducing that unit's attacks by 2. And then their hammer unit isn't a very big hammer anymore. And yeah, it hurts, but suddenly they're just way weaker than they expected. And like I said, that's going to be key to one of my lists that I'm going to talk about in this video. It's pretty powerful. Being able to rapid ingress, again, up to 4 units in a single turn is kind of insane. So this is a really cool stratagem. Next enhancement is Tremor Senses. So this is your stock standard redeploy. This is 20 points, and basically after both players have deployed, you can put 3 units, redeploy 3 units, including in strategic reserve, regardless of how many units you already have off the table. This is actually one of the few times where I might take this ability not to like try and redeploy a key big gun unit to a different flank, but instead throw more stuff in reserve. This detachment, your reserves can basically go anywhere on the table. If your opponent is not playing a hyper fast army that's about to just swarm the entire board, you can sit there and deploy and throw literally 1,000 points in reserve and then use this to straight up null deploy. If you have like 3 400-point units, such as say Swarmlord and Tyrant Guard and a Hive Tyrant and Tyrant Guard and a Neuro Tyrant with 6 Zoanthropes, and that's your 1,200 points that starts on the table, you can straight up put all 3 of those units back in reserve and have nothing on the table turn 1, which seems like a bad idea. But with the new chapter approved challenge missions, it kind of guarantees you're going to start getting these challenger cards, because you're going to have nothing on the table turn 1, so your opponent's going to score more points than you. And then turn 2, you drop in 2,000 points from reserve. It gets pretty ridiculous. Obviously, if your opponent is super fast and can screen the entire table, you don't want to do that. But if you're playing up against a gun line, it's kind of hilarious. Just the fact that you even can do this is kind of hilarious. So anyways, unless tabling is still, I don't think tabling ends the game anymore. If it does, obviously don't do this. I don't even actually know. I haven't been tabled unless, I've actually been tabled. I have not been tabled and had stuff still in reserve this edition. But anyways, that's what I would use it for. I had like 2 exocrines that I started on the table and then I put back in reserve because my opponent was Death Guard and they're kind of slow. So I started with a Biovore on my home objective and, a couple other, and my Raveners. And then my Raveners went back in reserve and I redeployed my exocrines off of this enhancement. And yeah, anyways, long story short, you can use this to put 1,500 points of your army in reserve, and in this detachment, it's actually pretty good to do that. Next enhancement is Vanguard Intellect. This allows you to deep strike turn 1. Not rapid ingress. It is very specific that the unit can be set up during your movement phase, turn 1. So this is really good. It basically goes on a Trigon. I don't think there's really anything else you would want to. The only other option is a Hive Tyrant. The Synaptic Strategy you could put on other things. I still think you want it only on a Hive Tyrant, or a winged Hive Tyrant or a Trigon. The Vanguard Intellect actually can only go on a Trigon and a winged Hive Tyrant for a turn 1 deep strike. I would put this on a Trigon, and basically turn 1 you get to make a burrow token, and that can be huge because essentially if you go first, your Trigon can show up turn 1, create a burrow token in your deployment zone, and that's going to be important later on. And yeah, then you can, if you go first, that's what you do, and then on your opponent's turn you put that Trigon back into reserve. We'll get to the strats later. But being able to make a burrow token in your deployment zone is very important, and this is the perfect way to do it. It's 15 points, and it's fantastic. I think you take that on a Trigon in every list. even over this next enhancement. And I think that's going to be a hot take for some of you guys, because this next enhancement is super cool. It is the Trigon Prime. We finally get him back. They kind of obliterated his model as soon as our codex came out, and now he's back in the form of an enhancement. So this is an enhancement for 20 points, goes on a Trigon. The Trigon becomes a Trigon Prime, has Synapse, gets +1 weapon skill, meaning he now hits on 2s, and in this detachment, he's rerolling 1s. Your 12 attacks are going to get 11 or 12 hits, pretty much guaranteed. You also gain +1 strength, and because you gain Synapse, that means you're now going to be strength 11. That is a huge breakpoint. You're now wounding T10 stuff on 3s, whereas at the beginning of this edition, Trigons were wounding T10 stuff on 5s. Turns out multiplying your damage output by 2 is really good. So this actually makes your Trigon a melee machine. He will kill stuff. Really good for 20 points, because now you're paying 160 points for a strength 11 hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, deep striking monster that also helps other things deep strike. Whereas at the beginning of the edition, we were paying 170 points for way less than all of that. So that's great. It does, if you are taking 2 Trigons, this is what your second Trigon gets, and I think the first Trigon gets the turn 1 deep strike. And now let's get into the stratagems, and let's figure out why having a tunnel turn 1 is actually more important than making your Trigon a melee beatstick. Alright, so the first stratagem is Adaptive Optimization. A Moloch or Trigon in your command phase gains the Synapse keyword. Obviously, if you have a Trigon Prime, you don't need this. This is a very niche strat that basically, if you need to have Synapse for Battle Shock or for +1 strength, you can spend it in your command phase, you get Synapse. It's really cool to just get kind of little emergency nodes of Synapse, because you are going to be all over the table with these burrower things, so you might not be in range, and if you need it, you got an option. I do think this is going to be used very rarely, but it will come up occasionally. Next up is Replenishing Swarms. This is a very fun stratagem where basically in your movement phase, at any time in your movement phase, so that's the key here, but one Tyranid unit that is wholly within 9 inches of a burrow token either heals D3 +1 wounds, or if they are 1 wound per model unit, you heal D3 +1 models. So that means you've got your Unending Swarm ability back, where basically all your Endless Swarm guys, you can get D3 +1 dudes back, but also all your monsters can heal D3 +1 wounds. That is actually pretty clutch because, again, since this is at any point in your movement phase, if someone got wounded turn 1, say like a Maliceptor or an Exocrine or a Norn would be great with this. Your Norns are hard enough to deal damage to that when you heal D3 +1 and you happen to heal 4 wounds, that's actually such a morale blow to your opponent that it has a serious impact. But importantly, you can do this by like after your after your burrow token shows up. So you sit there, your Norn has taken some damage, you emergency bring in 5 Raveners, they create a burrow token, and that burrow token is within 9 of your Norn, wholly within 9, then your Norn can suddenly spend this immediately and just heal D3 +1. Or you can walk your Norn into range of a burrow token, again, wholly within, but once you do that, you can then just heal. And so I think Norns are the best thing that you can do this on, but it's also very strong on Maliceptors, on Hive Tyrants, anything that is already a little bit durable. Healing D3 +1 is going to be a nice most value there. Hilariously enough, I wanted to try experimenting with Spore Mines. Spore Mines are 18 points a model, and bringing back D3 +1 of them is kind of hilarious because they are 1 wound models. Not actually good, but is kind of hilarious. If you take a unit of 6 Spore Mines, you get 5 of them within 3 of your opponent, and they blow up, and the 6th one is wholly within 9 of a burrow token. You can bring up to 4 Spore Mines back, and then charge them in and do, 5 more mortals. It's cute. I laugh at it on paper. I don't think it's worth actually trying on the table. Next stratagem is Enfilading Emergence. I have no idea what that word is supposed to be, but This is essentially a unit that has arrived from reserves this turn, gets ignores cover and sustained hits 1. You do this also in your movement phase. So here's what's weird about it is it's in your movement phase and it lasts until the end of the turn, or until the end of your fight phase. But basically, this can be on a Trigon Prime, shows up, and now hits on 2s, rerolling 1s, and has sustained hits in combat. Or you can use it to get sustained hits and ignores cover in your shooting. Technically, it gives it to you for both. There's not too many units that are good in shooting and melee for Tyranids. Everything's kind of specialized. But, like, again, a Norn, that's kind of nice to be able to just have the... It's nice to have the sustained hits 1 in combat, and maybe you get lucky on your shots too. And, yeah. So, it's pretty neat. I think the best thing that this goes on is Zoanthropes. If you throw an entire Brain Council up, then do your las cannons. You're suddenly hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, sustained lethal, and ignores cover. That will actually just delete a tank. Unfortunately, you then just die on the clapback, has been my experience, but it is really cool to show up with a 300-point las cannon crew that will actually kill a tank. Tyranids need something reliable, and that unit actually kind of gets there most of the time. But yeah, so that stratagem is a kind of our one offensive boost, which is pretty nice. Next up, you have Tunnel Network. So this is the most broken stratagem in this detachment. It is very strong. Basically, in your movement phase, you pick one Tyranid unit that is wholly within 9 of a burrow token. You spend a CP, and it disappears from that burrow marker and shows up wholly within 9 of another burrow marker, outside of 6 of enemies. But that is the only restriction, is you show up outside of 6 of enemies. This means any model that you want can teleport across the board. This is why you want a tunnel marker in your deployment zone turn 1 from that Trigon. If you go second, it's even better, because then you can uppy downy your Raveners to create more burrow tokens, and you can have 3-4 burrow tokens turn 1, depending on how many Raveners you have, and a turn 1 deep striking Trigon. You can suddenly teleport all over the map. I have literally sat there. One of my practice games, I teleported 5 units into my opponent's face turn 1. And that is because I uppy downied a Flyrant for a C. He went first. I uppy downied a Flyrant for a CP turn 1, and both of my Ravener squads went into reserve at the end of his turn 1. And that meant that all 3 of them could come back in from Deep Strike on my turn 1, plus my turn 1 Deep Striking Trigon. That gave me 3 tunnel tokens, one of which was back at my home again. And then I teleported in my Exocrine basically walked to get wholly within 9 of one of my tunnel tokens, and then teleported to a front tunnel token. And turn 1, I had a Flyrant, a turn 1 Deep Striking Trigon, both Ravener units, and a teleporting Exocrine that all got to attack him again turn 1. So that's what makes this detachment feel busted. I promise it's not actually busted, but it feels extremely powerful when you pull a move like that. Feels kind of bullshit, but I promise it's actually not that bad for opponents. So I actually don't think this is going to get crazy nerfed. The only thing that I do expect to kind of be nerfed is the other aspect of this stratagem is there's no restrictions about being in engagement range when you disappear through a tunnel. If you are wholly within 9 of a tunnel and you are in combat, you can teleport through and it does not count as falling back. So then you're still able to shoot and charge from a different tunnel, and you basically have an emergency eject button. And that's really, really strong. Hilariously, the other thing is, yes, you can just fit a Hierophant Biotitan through this tunnel and basically show up with a Hierophant Biotitan turn 1 in your opponent's face. Sounds hilarious, maybe is strong. He does have to be wholly within 9 of the token, and I don't even know, now that the Hierophant Biotitan is a measure to whole model, I don't know how that actually works with terrain. It's cute, it's fun. I will play it at least once. But yes, the size of your model doesn't matter. The being in combat doesn't matter. And this is an incredibly powerful ability that you will probably want to be using every turn you can. In my experience, most of your tunnel tokens are gone by turn 3. So you're really only using this turn 1, maybe turn 2. But we'll see. Maybe this detachment gets figured out, and maybe it is too powerful. But at the moment, it does not feel too powerful from my experience. But still a very good strat all the same, and it is what makes this detachment. Next up, we've got Swarming Assault. So this is used in your charge phase, and you pick a Tyranid monster unit that has arrived from reserve this turn. And it gets a 6-inch aura of reroll charges. This is incredible. It just really means that your guys coming out of a tunnel are probably getting there. Because now they have 6-inch rerollable charges. So honestly, you use this with your Trigon or with a Moloch or even a Flyrant that showed up. And basically anything else that showed up with them through their burrow tokens, everyone gets rerollable charges. I kind of like doing it with a Moloch. Basically, the Moloch shows up and gives out an aura of charges to everyone, and the Moloch doesn't have to be 6 away. So you can kind of play with this range. The other thing that is really good about this strat is, for example, one thing that I did is I had my Trigon show up outside of 6 from like a forward scouting Phobos character, and I showed up 6 away from him, created a tunnel token there. The Raveners then used that tunnel token to show up outside of 6 of a different unit, and then this was actually all the turn 1 stuff as well. So when I brought in those 5 units, it was Raveners showed up to get nearby the Exocrine to teleport the Exocrine. Trigon then used the Ravener hole to also get up within 6 of the Phobos Lieutenant, and then created another tunnel for the second Ravener unit to show up. And then the Exocrine tunneled from the first Ravener hole to the second Ravener hole. And then the Flyrant also showed up by the second Ravener hole. And then the Trigon popped the ability to reroll charges, making the charge into the Phobos Lieutenant. And now that he has made his charge, he is now within 6 inches of the Flyrant and the Raveners, and then they make their charges with full rerolls as well. It's very powerful. So yeah, this is just 1 CP, reliable charges, and that's incredible because that would be the biggest flaw of this detachment is, well, if you just fail that 6-inch charge, you're kind of screwed. And you are, so don't fail it. Spend this CP. And last but not least, we've got Retreat Below. This is a strat that kind of just has to be in this detachment, like it wouldn't function without it. But at the end of your opponent's fight phase, put a unit back in reserve. So any unit you want, throw it in reserve, and then it can come through a tunnel next turn and be potentially anywhere on the board. Or alternatively, 1 CP, put 2 Burrower units in reserve. So if you are playing Molochs, you can put both Molochs back in reserve. Yeah, just a really good strat. This does have the caveat, you cannot be in engagement range, which does suck, because often you're showing up 6 away from your opponent, so you probably are going to be in engagement range. So sometimes this turns into you need 2 CP to kind of get out, where turn 1 you teleport through a tunnel, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, and then you kind of hide and lick your wounds for a turn, and then during your opponent's turn, you either retreat or you get ready to tunnel back through it on your turn again. It's very CP intensive, and I do think that is one of the weaknesses of this detachment. There's 2 glaring weaknesses of this detachment that, in my opinion, keep it from being broken. The first of those being, this is a very CP intensive detachment. You want to be using Tunnel Network every turn. You probably want to be doing Retreat Below to make future burrow tokens in future turns. So already there's your CP for your turn and your opponent's turn. Any extra CP that you get, whether that's from Swarmlord discarding cards or any other meat, or your Hive Tyrants once per battle round, you want to be using towards the Swarming Assault, reroll your 6-inch charges, and then If you're running a giant zoanthrope brick, you might save it for the enfilading emergence, which kind of means that you actually don't have any CP for replenishing swarms. You definitely don't have any CP for adaptive optimization. So all of your CP are basically going into just movement shenanigans, with maybe once per game a sustained hits 1 buff with ignores cover. That's kind of been my experience, and so that's what keeps this detachment just as a good detachment and not a broken one, is you actually don't really have the CP to use anything except movement shenanigans. And then even if you do have unlimited CP, you actually only have one stratagem that improves your offense outside of just the reroll ones to hit all the time. And then the big main detriment to this detachment, in my opinion, especially now that the Psychophage has been nerfed, there is 0 defensive buffs of any kind. You are relying solely on Tyranid datasheets to survive. And I don't know if you've been playing Tyranids this edition. You probably have. Our stuff doesn't live very well without some help. So that's the reason why everyone is playing Invasion Fleet right now, is 5-up Feel No Pain on our monsters is really good and is kind of necessary. Otherwise, all our stuff just dies, especially all of our Burrower units. So everything that this detachment is built around is T10 with a 3-up save, no invuln, no Feel No Pain. The game is very well equipped to kill anything with that stat line at the moment. So as soon as any of these guys, they show up, they punch, and anything that they don't kill punches them back, and you will just die. So that is the biggest issue with this detachment, in my opinion, and that's what's going to keep it from being overpowered, is you're spending at least 600 points. You probably want to be throwing even more of that into Burrower units. These Burrower units make your tokens, they punch one thing really well, and then they die. And then depending on the rest of your list, maybe it also capitalizes on the mobility, at least as long as you have it until all of your Burrowers are dead. Or they have to carry that defensive burden. So you have to play like Norns and Maliceptors with the rest of the list. Otherwise, everything just dies. So having mentioned that, let's get into my lists and how they have evolved over the last 7 games. So let's start with the first list that I made after immediately reading this detachment and seeing what I wanted to run. All right, so this is my first list that I made immediately after seeing all the new changes. So first off, I wanted to try the new Raveners. They seemed incredibly good, so I have 2 giant 10-man bricks of Raveners. These come out to 290 points apiece, but they hit really, really hard. So I had that. I wanted to try out the Neurotyrant with 6 Zoanthropes. This is another unit that seems really good with being able to teleport, completely negates their bad range ability of only 24 inches, gives them ignores cover, rerolls hits for consistency. Seems like a very strong unit in this detachment. Then the next thing I wanted to try was the Trigon Prime. Give this guy a nice little test run because it seems like this is going to be a monster that actually kills guys. I did have Swarmlord with no Tyrant Guard, just Swarmlord. And basically my thought here is Swarmlord just kind of hides behind a wall and just tunnels all over the board between different walls, and basically just gives out that 12-inch Vect aura wherever I need it at the time. So at any point that I'm feeling like, oh, I want to make sure my opponent can't interrupt here, let's throw Swarmlord through a tunnel, give a Vect aura. The opponent now needs 3 CP to interrupt. And that works pretty well. It's pretty good. And then if he can go to an isolated flank and kill something on his own, because he now does have 8 attacks hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. So not bad at all. And then finally, I wanted to try Flyrants at 170 points apiece. I wanted to see if they were just good now, as like just their stat line. So they're now hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s at only 170 points. I wanted to try them. So I threw 3 Flying Hive Tyrants in this list. And then finally, so basically everything in my list other than these 6 zoanthropes are all melee. So I did throw in 2 psychophages to make sure that they could actually do some damage. So with this list, I played against Death Guard as my first practice game. And it went pretty well. I did end up winning the game, but thoughts about the list. The Winged Hive Tyrants struggled. 6 attacks turns out is still just not enough. They would convert 5 or 6 wounds. It was pretty cool, but unfortunately against Death Guard, like against their Blight Drones and Myphitic Blight Haulers, that kind of thing, of which my opponent had at least 5, and I think that's going to be pretty standard. You sit there and you say, here's 5 saves, and then they make 2 or 3 5-up invulns, and they live on 1 or 4 wounds, and then they kill you immediately afterwards because they shoot you with the multi-melta that still hits on 3s and wounds on 2s, because your Hive Tyrant drops from T9 to T8, and they're a Strength 9 Melta gun with +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. So that was that experience. The Trigon Prime did fine. The Psychophage was great. But basically he has Death Shroud Terminators that also kill a lot of things. The Raveners were really good, but they died super fast. And again, the Death Shroud Terminators, he was playing in the Virulent Vectorum, so he could give them -1 damage, which reduced the Raveners' output considerably. The Zoanthropes, they teleported to be able to shoot at some Death Shroud. They killed 1 whole Death Shroud Terminator, and then they all immediately died to the flat 3 damage blast guns from the Blight Drones. And that's because, again, you have no defenses. So they teleported, killed a Death Shroud, and then all immediately died. So that felt really bad. But again, I did win the game. I basically ended up getting tabled, but the nice thing is I was able to put on enough pressure that he was not able to stay on objectives very much, and I was able to win through having the majority of primary for the entire game, and him just being unable to catch up. So I think it was like a 84-69 kind of victory. Wasn't a huge win, but it was a win because I got enough of an early lead that I was able to hold out just long enough. So that brought us to the second list, where basically I wanted to try what would happen with essentially a mass battle shock list. So I have Death Leaper to give out a -1 leadership aura, as well as double Brain Council, because if I'm doing all the battle shocks, this is the best unit to be able to benefit from it. And then obviously Trigon with Trigon Prime, because he seems really good. Triple Neurolictor, again, to do battle shock stuff and get +1 to wound if they are battle shocked. Double Brain Council, like I talked about. Triple Moloch to do mortals, create burrow tokens, and do more battle shock checks potentially. And triple Screamer Killer, because we wanted to try out those, see how the battle shock works, and also just dropping Screamer Killers 6 inches away seems pretty fun. So I played this list, and I played it against Cody Giroux, who's a phenomenal Drukhari player. And yeah, the list was cute. It does not do enough damage. The Von Ryans tried to screen out, but Cody Giroux was playing a double Beast Pack, and he did get first turn. And the Beast Packs just went forward and killed off all of my Neurolictors right off the bat. In addition to Death Leaper. So that was really rough. I lost basically all of my infiltrators turn 1. Turn 2, all the Molochs showed up, the Screamer Killers hit everywhere, the Zoanthropes teleported and fired away. I was able to do significant damage, but not... I never finished off any units. I essentially killed the... One thing that kind of happened was I was able to kill Grotesques and a bunch of Mandrakes in addition to a Scourge unit. So it was nice. I was able to pretty severely whittle down his court unit, but at the end he was still able to come back, and yeah, the clapback hurt a lot. The Zoanthropes all died. I think down to a single zoanthrope with a neurotyrant left, and yeah, it hurt a lot. The list was fun, but yeah, it just severely lacked damage output. So I don't know. Maybe there's another way to make it work. My experience was not great with this particular list just because of a severe lack of damage. But again, I think most lists are not able to get first turn and pick up all 4 Neurolictors and the Von Ryans and Death Leaper. So yeah, I don't think too many lists are able to do that, but that severely hampered me. And then that meant that my turn 1, I killed off the beast packs, and then turn 2 I was able to show up and do some damage but not enough, and then everything basically died on the clapback. Yeah, it was definite win for the Drukhari there and Cody Giroux. All right, and then third list that I've come up with, this is basically just taking the Tyranid stuff that is good with the Exocrines and Maliceptors. So double Exocrine, triple Maliceptor. This is basically relying on the toughness of the Maliceptors, because again, the problem with all the previous lists is my stuff dies way too quickly. So trying to rely on the toughness of the Maliceptors and then Exocrines to be able to get angles, because teleporting those guys around is really good, especially with the current meta. Seems like is going to be a lot of 3-wound elite infantry. So Exocrines love that. I did decide to go back to the Winged Hive Tyrants, but this time instead of playing them super offensively, play them defensively. I alluded to this earlier in the video. Basically, you can rapid ingress both Winged Hive Tyrants in a single turn because of the enhancement, and then basically they can combine up against whatever hammer unit is hitting you in a single turn and severely weaken that hammer, especially because you have Maliceptors in the front, making them -1 to hit. So then basically this hammer unit, whether it's Death Shroud, whether it's Sword Brethren, whatever big punchy melee unit is coming to hit you, is going to be at -1 to hit and -2 attacks. And if they're hitting a Maliceptor who's T11 with 14 wounds and a 4-up invuln, they're probably not killing it anymore. And then that allows you to clap back with those Winged Hive Tyrants that are now, within 12 inches of that unit. And then in addition to that, I do still have the 10-man Ravener Brick. These guys have been phenomenal in being able to pick up any one big target that you need before, dying most of the time. But keeping 2 other Ravener units just to be able to threaten lighter units and create burrow tokens everywhere that you need. A Psychophage to get up to AP3, and a Trigon, however now instead of the Trigon Prime, having the turn 1 deep strike ability. So again, that's really key, creating a tunnel in your deployment zone and basically use that to teleport a Maliceptor or an Exocrine up to the front lines. Yeah, it's very good. So that's it. That's all my lists. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave comments below on what your lists are, your experiences, how you think Tyranids are doing. I do think Tyranids are also pretty good, basically adding these Ravener units to other detachments. That's the Assimilation Swarm that I've been playing. I think dropping the 2 Tyrannifexes that I've been running in my most recent list and substituting that, plus my 2 kind of chaff secondary guys, being a Lictor and a Pyrovore, that 500 points becoming 2 giant 10-man Ravener bricks seems really strong. So I think I'm going to try that. Those 10-man Ravener bricks with being able to bring units back and actually benefiting from the enhancements that give you +1 strength. So suddenly you have strength 7 Raveners, and they could go up to 4 attacks each after they kill something. That could be really good. The other enhancement to bring 2 Ravener bottles back per turn also seems really good. Yeah, I'm excited to try that out. I haven't tried it yet. I've only been messing with the new detachment, but I think that might just be stronger. I'm also very familiar with this Assimilation Swarm list. I've been playing it for almost 6 months now. So yeah, I think it's really good. And like I said, the Raveners in Invasion Fleet with lethal sustained crit 5s also seems very powerful. But I haven't played Invasion Fleet in over a year, so You guys will have to test and tell me. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next video.